for the PowerPoint to get brought on. I guess I wanted to just introduce myself again. I was Mike Frerichs' campaign manager. So for those of you that remember, I think the room was set up differently last time I was in here, but was a campaign manager of a state race that was the third closest in state history. He won by less than a vote per precinct. Illinois has just over 10,000 precincts statewide. Mike's final margin was just around 9,500 votes. So when I get invited to come back and speak to a local organization like this, I will forever always say yes, and thank you to Committeeman Krelov for extending the offer, because without the work that you did, we wouldn't have a Democratic state treasurer, we wouldn't have a guy that's 6'8" there. I probably wouldn't have such a good job right now coming out of it. So what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is really how your township fits in with the statewide puzzle and the work that needs to be done to make sure that our candidates, both at the local level and then certainly at the statewide level, can continue on to victory. So we'll start off. I am not Scott Kennedy, but I wanted to give him credit where credit is due. We had a fantastic event 2 weeks ago. Senator Biss was there. It was called the Illinois Resistance Resource Fair. We had about 600 people come through down at CTU in the city there. And Scott, who runs this website, IllinoisElectionData.com, sign up for his Twitter alerts. Go to visit his website. He puts out great content, unlike anything else you'll see in the state. He did a large chunk of this presentation. So I wanted to make sure that he is duly accredited. All right. So let's talk about the last election, if we care to revisit such a horrific result. Really, in Illinois, we kind of reverted back to norm. We had, if you look here, the way you run a race in Illinois is kind of in a couple distinct regions. Chicago, the Cook County suburbs, then the traditional collars, that's Lake, that's Will, that's Kane. That is McHenry County, and then pretty much everything else south of there and west of I-39, which we would just call downstate. Clinton did really well in comparison. She almost matched Obama's margins from when he was at his height of support here in 2008. Certainly in Cook County overall, you see she actually just dipped a little bit in the city there. Did pretty well across the suburbs. Really, if you want to look back to what 2016 was in Illinois, look back to 2004 and 2000. A lot of the numbers you're going to start to see match up, except for the fact in downstate. You'll take a look there. It got real ugly real fast. She got about 38% of the vote, inching actually closer to what Governor Quinn got when he lost, compared to Obama, who won downstate in 2008 with a majority, which is pretty incredible for a Democrat. The federal level, only then had about a 6-point bump down from there. Clinton went well below that in the downstate total. So again, that's everything west of 39, south of 80, all right? But really, 2016, reversion back to the norm. We were right where we were kind of 2004, 2008 with the favorite son at the top of the ticket, without that. Next one. Oh, scoot. There we are. So when we are talking about downstate is best kind of thought of not just county by county, but by media market. So Illinois, I think we have 12 media markets. Daniel will probably know since he'll be buying here shortly. But the Chicagoland market is this green northeastern portion of the state, goes all the way down to Iroquois County, all the way over to Starved Rock, LaSalle, Peru. Rockford is that white portion, right? So you're kind of orienting yourself within the state. There's a couple media markets that I do want to point out that are of particular interest. The red one here with Springfield in the middle of it, the one just north of that, Peoria, and then the one where Rockford is, those are the most efficient markets that you have in the state because they are completely contained within Illinois. So when you look at some of these statewide races, oftentimes a candidate like Mike Frerichs buys in those markets first because you're not paying for eyeballs that can't vote for you in Iowa and in Indiana and in Iowa and in Missouri. You're paying for only people that end up getting to vote for you. So oftentimes statewide, you're going to go up in those three markets. The Champaign, Urbana, Decatur, Springfield market, the Peoria market, sometimes called Peoria-Bloomington market, and then the Rockford market. Really efficient, really good markets. But let's look at kind of where we were. Trump in the Chicago market, up here in the far corner here, did historically bad. No candidate prior to that did. Oh, that's all right. You're saying sorry for Trump doing that? No, this is
I'm sorry about that.
So Trump did historically bad in the Chicago market, all right? did even worse than John McCain did again when Barack Obama was at his height. Then you get into those three other solely contained districts or media markets within Illinois. The Rockford, the Peoria, the Champaign, Springfield, Decatur market. Again, what's different about those markets? If you're advertising in Iowa or Wisconsin or the big races that we had in Indiana or in Missouri, you're not buying on markets that will bleed into those three. And look at how Trump did. He actually, again, kind of normal for a Republican. And Rockford, he was just 2 points off of what Bush got there, kind of closer to Romney in 12. In Peoria, again, a little bit worse than Bush did there. Champaign, this is a really interesting market. The Champaign market, he actually got almost exactly what Romney did 12 years ago, 6 points better than what McCain did 8 years ago there, right? So those markets are different. Now look at the other markets, the bleed markets, where outside spending in swing states for governor, for Senate, for president started to affect the results. He starts to do historically well here in the Quad Cities market, right? That far one, the purple one up in the northwest corner of the state, he got 50% of the vote. Obama won it in 2008, won it again in 2012. Trump does 8 points better in that. And the Quincy market, historically a Republican market, this blob here, they call it Forgotonia in Illinois. If you've ever tried to get over there, you'll understand why there's no major interstate that goes there. Again, historically well on that. Blows out what Romney, what McCain got, does way better than what Bush even got. St. Louis market, again, same thing. That's a base Democratic market in a lot of, for a lot of statewide races in Illinois because of the Metro East portion and some of the Blue Dog districts just south of there started running away with it. And then in these really small markets, the Paducah market, which is the southern tip of the state there, based out of Kentucky. This is where you start to see kind of the story of Trump being told. Again, historical margins. And the Evansville and Terre Haute markets, very small percentage in statewide. That's in southeastern Illinois. Again, almost hitting 80% of the vote there. Right?
Are you attributing that to the media spend?
I'm attributing that to, well, in a lot of the ones, especially in the Iowa and the Missouri and into the Indiana market, yes, there was spending that was going on nationally that was affecting this that otherwise would not have been done in the Rockford, the Peoria, and the Champaign, Springfield market on that one. Now, that's not to say anything with the spending that was being done in those markets within Illinois for our state level races, but federal races are handled differently and thus voters react differently to that type of advertising. All right, next one. When we're going to be talking about some of the races that are going to be coming up onto our ballot next year, we're probably going to actually want to look at what how Leslie Munger did in 2016. Leslie was a statewide race, not a fairly well-established incumbent, but an incumbent nonetheless, and also had the wonderful benefit of having a billionaire that really owed you a lot. Now we're seeing with Susana Mendoza why that seat really matters here. Munger, again, kind of ran as a generic Republican in a lot of ways. She didn't really run away with it. She had some kind of residual strength in the northern suburbs in Cook County. But here's a couple numbers that I want you to keep in mind, and I think Daniel knows these well. Cook County, just this top line here. If you can keep a Republican below 30% coming out of Cook County, you're looking real good statewide. Just the way the numbers break down, 30% there, you're looking better. Really, it's about 33, maybe 32.5%. You can keep a Republican below that statewide, you're in really good shape as a Democrat. We did that. Susana did that. Even more importantly, here's one thing if you take away from it. If a Republican comes out of Chicago, just city proper, less than 30%, or I'm sorry, less than 20% of the vote, you're looking really good again statewide, just because of the margins that Democrats get in that. So you keep them to less than 1 in 5, which again Mendoza did, you're looking really good. Munger only got 19% there. Downstate, let's take a look here. Downstate, Munger's performance 56, actually wasn't that far off of Trump, which is kind of unusual considering their profiles. But look what she did. She did better than Kirk, and she actually did not that far of a drop off versus Ronner. Where I would say, though, that this would be an interesting correlation to what could potentially be happening in 2018 is Munger is actually doing a little bit worse than you would expect with those numbers. And so are you starting to see some of the some of the Ronner effect downstate start to affect his candidates. And why do I say that? A lot of the state facilities, a lot of the universities, a lot of the state workforce that has really taken it on the chin right now is because of Ronner's mismanagement of the state and lack of budget. So are some of the candidates that are really closely aligned to him maybe starting to pay the price? You would expect Munger, who advertised much heavier and much more downstate than Mendoza, to have done a little bit better than that. So again, her total, really not that unusual. She's down a little bit from where Ronner was. She did better than Kirk. Again, that was within some of the suburbs on that end. And you know, the fact that there was a woman candidate on there, there's usually a little bit more crossover for that. Oh, and actually one thing I want to point out too, just a shout out to Tammy Duckworth. This number, 52% in the Metro East market for Kirk, is actually phenomenal. In a federal race, again, if you remember what that market looked like for Trump, Kirk did actually pretty weak there. Coming out of there, and Duckworth actually did surprisingly well in the Metro East market. Spent a lot of time in Granite City, did a lot of veterans work down that way. Her profile for that area was actually really good. All right, flip it over. So where are we gonna kind of look then at how this all starts to play out? All these numbers that I'm throwing out to you, what does that actually mean for elections? Well, look at all the districts downstate that we lost or are gonna be right on the bubble. We lost this district here in far southern Illinois, John Bradley, longtime leader in the state house. He ran almost 50 points ahead of what Hillary Clinton got in that district, and he still lost. All right? This one here, the much bigger portion of it, this is Brendan Phelps' district. He right now is one of, he and Jerry Costello Jr., which is this part in far southwestern Illinois, are really kind of some of the last vestiges of what at one time was a very strong brand, a Southern Democrat, a yellow dog Democrat. We had lineage of Democrats all over the place, really kind of coming out of this area down from 72 on down. We were really strong, not so much anymore. These two districts here, these are in the Metro East area. That's the one part of the state downstate, and that region that's actually growing right now. You've got friends and family that are in Edwardsville or Glen Carbon, even parts of Belleville because of some of the military spending. This area here was actually the only district that we picked up. We beat an incumbent Republican there, Dwight Kay, who was just a real asshole, no other way to say it. We beat him with Katie Stewart. And then the district right north of him, Dan Beiser, was one that we barely kept on. These two districts combined to make a Senate district that's held by Democrat Bill Hain. That's in Madison County. That's going to be a top-tier district. He's likely to retire. So this area here, you're going to see a ton of spending again. Here, northern part of it, Sue Shear. She's kind of perpetually on the bubble at Springfield, Decatur, but she was unopposed randomly last time. This district here is, how many of you remember seeing advertisements for Kate Clunan? Remember that? About 80 miles south of us, but they still advertise on broadcast TV in Chicago. We lost that district. This kind of I-80 corridor into the LaSalle, Peru area, again in Starved Rock area, was longtime Democratic district. We lost that. We lost then this district over here in the Quad Cities just north of it from Mike Smitty. And then in the metro area, we've got really not that many incumbent Democrats that are going to be on the bubble. We have maybe one or two opportunities for offense in that area. That far northern splotch there is Sam Yingling. You probably saw a lot of his advertising. He's up in the northern Lake County area there. And then we've got a couple others in DuPage County, bleeding into Will County there. So those are kind of where the targeted districts are. What I would point out is, again, Trump in the metro region did historically bad. But who did historically, well, who made history here? Bruce Rauner did. He had unlimited resources and an ability to drive in a message. So he was able to offset Trump's historic weakness in the Chicagoland market by the favorite Republican boogeyman, Mike Madigan. So he really offset some of what probably would have been a drag down there. Frankly, you would have expected Democrats to pick up seats in the suburbs, and we didn't. We were playing in a lot of them here, but we didn't. So, you know, again, kind of a preview of what's going to be happening here in a couple of years. There's a real strong message that the governor's going to be able to burn into it, maybe offset against some of the weakness that the Trump midterm presidency is going to drag into the suburbs. And then downstate was kind of a killing field, even in a presidential year, typically when Democrats do better. And so it's going to be a real battle again coming forward. But again, you might have the offset where Trump was really strong, Rauner is really weak. So how is that going to play out in that region down there? All right, next one. Let's see, no, we are here. Again, just kind of to pull all of that together in a little bit cleaner of a chart here. Again, Cook County, we're looking back to just 2004 and beyond for governor's races. Pat Quinn actually held pretty well within Cook County, increased it within Chicago. His margin bumped up about 2 points in Chicago. The story untold from 2014 in Chicago, though, was for the first time in a long time, turnout dropped below 50% in Chicago. So he got a better margin, but he had less voters. That's a dangerous place to be. Again, held pretty well within the suburbs there. And the collars, how many of you knew that where Pat Quinn grew up?
Oak Park.
Well, kinda. He's actually DuPage. Pat Quinn grew up in DuPage County for a portion, so he actually can kind of claim a little bit of residence there. He actually did better. If you look there, in 2010, he almost got 40% in the suburbs there. Took a dip down from there, but then you start to see kind of the story. He performed historically bad downstate as a Democrat here. Even did worse than he did in 2010, which was already a dip. Take a look at that. Pashard, who was a downstate Democrat, almost won downstate as a gubernatorial candidate, which is fairly rare. And then also looking too just at some of the other races that were on the ballot in 2014. Again, if you always want to just kind of get a comparison of where the drop-off happened, compare Quinn's numbers to Frerich's numbers. Frerichs comes from a downstate region there, so he was able to outperform him. We identified about 30,000 voters that did not vote for Pat Quinn, but then voted for Mike Frerichs, and they were primarily contained within that Peoria, Champaign, Springfield market down there. So you can start to see, if you're going to run a really, really close race, again, third closest in state history, what are the percentages that you would need by the region down there? Look, you can look at Mike Frerichs as an example of that. But again, you start to see where the coalitions can change a little bit, but really, frankly, doing pretty similar to what Quinn did up in the metro market, but better downstate on that end. All right, next one. Just a little closer to home, there's going to be a big congressional race coming again. Brad Schneider, the game of checkers between him and Dold continues on, maybe even again. But I think we can pretty comfortably say he definitely ran a good race last year, but he was certainly helped by Hillary Clinton doing 12 points better than Barack Obama did just 2 years prior to, or 4 years prior to that. So that definitely helped. I mean, it's kind of incredible to me to see, again, how well Hillary Clinton did here. She almost won the 10th district by 30 points, yet we did no pickup at the local level there. And again, what is that? That message that Ron is being able to drill in at an unprecedented level is able to offset, again, some of the natural trends that you're seeing here. The 10th district's a unique district. It's really not even that bad statewide electorate, and you start to see, as we'll get to in a little bit here, y'all like splitting your tickets. So you like to go for a Republican for some offices, Democrats for others there, but none of them are ever really like massive blowouts unless you're Jesse White. All right, you can flip to the next one. One race that I'm sure you're going to be seeing, and you're probably already taking a lot of interest in, is Illinois 6. This is the district held by Peter Roskam. Yes, Donald Trump lost this district, which, having grown up in the district and having a very early interaction with, again, the asshole that is Peter Roskam, very excited to see that, except then you look at every other Democrat in that district, and my God, does it get ugly for you. So all the enthusiasm, all the excitement that we have to take some offense to a House Republican leader, temper your enthusiasm a little bit. The governor won that by 33 points. Mike Frerichs, again, in a race that he won statewide as a Democrat, lost it by almost 30 points.
Jesse White.
Yeah, Jesse White, only one to win it. Lisa Madigan, who can even name Lisa Madigan's opponent from 2014? He's now a senator downstate, yes. But Paul Schimpf, she barely wins it, right? I mean, when she was going on to win just resoundingly statewide. So we should put our all into the 6th. It was a 15-point flip from just 4 years prior at the presidential level, but it is a nasty district for pretty much Democrats all the way down the ballot. All right, on to some local numbers here. Can maybe flip the light just to see this a little better? I didn't realize my coloring was that dark. All right, well, here. On the red side, we don't want to worry about that. We don't have anything to worry about over here. This is a really simple way just to kind of set this chart up for you, to look at how people that play in elections start to figure out who we're going to talk to and why we're going to talk to you. We basically create a real simple grid. This top line here, DNC primary Dem Party support, means the likelihood if you vote if you would then vote for a Democrat, right? So that's a likelihood that you're a Democrat. This one over here, DNC general turnout, is the likelihood of whether or not you'll actually vote, right? So if you're going to vote, and you're already there, who are you likely to vote for? We read that going from left to right. So 0 to 50 basically means if you're going to vote for a Republican, right? And you're starting out from here, so when you get into this portion here, these are like your base Republican voters. In Northfield Township, there's about 15,500 of them, all right? You, in this room, likely fall in this portion over here. You're very likely to vote, and you're very likely to vote for a Democrat once you get there. All right, so what does that tell you? Well, you guys have about, excuse me, a 12-point registration bump overall of just base voters. So if nobody else ever voted in this township, and you just had every Republican, hardcore Republican vote, and all of you vote, you guys would win by about 12 points. Yeah?
I'm just curious, where do you derive these percentages from?
Sure. So these percentages really are, it's a score. There's every person in the voter file. We've all worked in VAN, right? Voter Activation Network, Vote Builder. Everybody in that file has a score applied to them. Again, your likelihood to turn out and your likelihood to then vote for a Democrat once you do turn out. So those two, again, we can run a matrix up against each other. How you get that level of score is influenced by a lot of things. Consumer data, what primaries you voted for in the past, census tract you live in, how expensive your house is, how many cars you own, your educational attainment, how much money you make, you name it. Even down to like what magazines you subscribe to, or really now, what websites you go to, what websites you subscribe to. So a lot of consumer data is thrown into the mix. It's not perfect. I think we all maybe have a lesson learned from 2016. Hard and fast data, targeting, modeling might not always be the best rule of law, but it gives you a place to start. So again, for you guys, pretty much anybody that has a score of Dem Party support from 0 to 49.99, likely it's not worth spending a lot of time talking to them about Democratic candidates, because if they do turn out, they're not probably going to vote for you. But once you start getting up from 50 and above, we start talking to our people. Now, who's most interesting to talk to? I would say there's two populations. The people that are in this room right now, again, are in this lower, darker blue corner. We don't need to talk to you. You're going to vote, and you're going to vote for a Democrat. So we're going to move on to your neighbors and hopefully have those people helping us talk to their neighbors. Here's one use of your time. Your persuasion targets, the 50 to 70s. These are people that are likely to vote for a Democrat, no guarantee. But if they do, they'll probably go our way. But they've got some kind of middling turnout components there, right? This top half here, they're not the world's greatest turnout. But this lower half here, that's your perpetual North Shore voter. Those are the people that are going to really turn out. They lean a little bit Democrat. They probably like voting for Democrats at the federal level. But ooh, down ballot, we love splitting tickets up here, right? So that's a really good thing to spend some time talking to these folks for persuasion component. You have about 14,400 within your township that need kind of the double touch for persuasion component. And then the real interesting one here, I would say, again, an example that shows how North Shore you are. You guys are really good voters. These are base Democratic voters, but they need a little help to actually vote. So if they were to go vote, they're going to very likely be very strongly Democratic. But look at the difference. This is almost an inverse flip. There's a ton of them that vote every single time. There's not that many. There's only about 1,800 that don't vote every single time. So what I would say when you're compiling, what you're going to be doing in the next couple months, talk to your persuasion, talk to your turnout targets, maybe throw in a couple of those base Democrats just so your volunteers have a good, time out on the door. But that's your universe. Your GOTV targets are about 16,000 within this township. All right? Next one. Your overall performance, and we're going to whip through these real quick. A couple things to point out. Your overall township performance, just for turnout, is this top bar here. All right? So what started to change here? Well, you guys took a little bit of a dip in 2014 compared to even 2010, right? Your two non-federal midterm elections on that, that's a 4-point drop. That's a 4-point drop for an area that votes really high. That's a little concerning, right? But in presidential years, my God, you guys turn out. And again, 2016, pretty on point. You increased your turnout from 2012. You met basically what you had in 2008. When we really hated George Bush, you didn't quite meet that turnout level, but you got awfully close to it. All right? Democratic performance. A couple of things to point out here. Look at the Duckworth-Kirk numbers. Look how close this was in your township. 48.65 for Duckworth, 48.33. You guys like splitting tickets up here. Trump loses the district overwhelmingly, the township overwhelmingly. Almost a near tie for Senate, one space down on the
He
ballot.
used to be the congressman here, though.
Yeah, but still. You had, again, a 7.5% drop when you're looking at the 2014 turnout to the 2012 turnout when it came to gubernatorial candidates. So that's something to look at. 7.5%. That's not nothing on that end. And again, that was Quinn both times on that end. All right? But yet you also had then, if you look at the overall, again, Clinton-Trump performance, you had a 10% jump in the Democratic performance from 12 to 16. So you're doing okay. You could do better. You're doing pretty well, I should say. You could do better, though, specifically on turnout in midterms. All right, last slide. So a couple of takeaways before I open it up for questions. If you're looking just kind of for simple takeaways from this, get your turnout back up to what it was in 2006 or ideally 2010 even. All right, so in a year and a half, if you do that and nothing else, that would bring up a net gain of about 3,500 more voters coming out to the polls. And based on past Democratic performance here, that would be a net benefit of 1,300 votes for Democrats. That's a pretty good place to start. And again, I ran a campaign that we won by less than 10,000 votes. You could provide almost 1 in 10 or almost 2 in 10 votes that I needed statewide from one township. Persuasion. I showed it. You have a ton of it. So when you're starting to go out there, talk about the issues, maybe do some surveys, find a local candidate who's going to be going door to door. Petitions are out in the street in September. Start having that conversation. Start talking to some of those persuasion targets. Get them to sign a Democratic petition. Petition. Let them know about the upcoming Democratic Party meeting. Let them know what a great job Brad Schneider's doing on down the ballot. And registration. I would do this too. Remember when I said that in Chicago in 2014, we actually dropped in overall turnout. We dropped below 50% there. Well, how do you start making that back up? You register more people so that they can vote. You can hopefully turn more people out. Even in a township like this, highly engaged, highly democratic, just by doing a voter age population analysis of the district or of the township here, there's 762 very likely Democrats that currently live here who are unregistered. So start going to the farmer's market. Go across the street every time you see a moving truck pull up to those apartments over there. Every time you see a moving truck come on down the street, or maybe a kid come back home from school that your friend or coworker has, make sure they're registered. We have online registration thanks to the work of our state legislators here. Hopefully, if we don't have such a jerk governor, we'll have automatic voter registration going forward. That every single 18-year-old who's also a citizen is duly registered. We don't have to worry about it anymore. Now we can only start talking to them about the issues rather than having to get them to register and then go forward. So even in an area like this, you've got work to do across the board. You've got persuasion, you've got turnout, you've got registration efforts that need to be done on behalf of your local candidates and for all of your statewide and federal candidates. So with that, 28 minutes later, I'll take any questions that you got. Yeah.
Question I have is, okay, you showed us the